Any industry.
Any industry. So, of course, throughout that time, since 1969, you had to reinvent yourself.
Right.
I'm interested in that because I believe 100% you have to reinvent yourself for new modern technology, for new industry, for whatever. But there's some core things that you would like to keep. How did you go about reinventing yourself all the way from starting your first business all the way till now?
I'm going to give you two answers.
Okay.
Okay, one of them is the broad answer, and the other one's a micro answer that anybody can take tomorrow and go use for themselves.
Yes.
All right, the broad answer is, whatever I was in, I accepted the fact that it had a lifetime. And the lifetime wasn't my lifetime.
Oh, wow.
It was the lifetime of the project, the lifetime of the industry, the lifetime of the method, and that eventually things would change. Technology would change them, demographics would change them. So the first thing I did is I asked myself, what's the most major transitional power in the world I live in? And I experienced it when I was in kindergarten. And what I experienced was, when I was in kindergarten, there were 10 or 12 kids in my class. When I went to first grade, there were 10 or 12 kids in my class, but in kindergarten there were 50. Okay? And then every year after me is called the baby boom.
Right.
They stacked up behind me in huge numbers. And there weren't enough schools, there weren't enough apparel manufacturers, there weren't enough anything for the baby boom because nobody expected them.
Right.
And nobody took the time to get out in front of that generation and say, well, as they age, what will they need? Right?
Yeah.
So right back in grade school, I had this awareness that there's this big generation behind me that is never going to have what I have.
Wow.
Okay? So that I would then look and say, well, what do I do? What do I need? And they're going to need it in the next couple of years. Okay? So I built my whole business on the total predictability of what changes would occur just from that demographic alone. So, for example, when the boomers came into their teens, what industry exploded? The record business, right? Because that's when they're at an age when they buy records.
Right.
So I not only knew it was going to happen, because I knew when I bought records, now I knew they would buy records and the demands would be way bigger because it's a bigger generation, right? So then I stopped looking at the time when I stopped buying records. I stopped buying records when I was in my 20s, early 20s, okay? Because it's not the same, your needs change.
Yeah.
So I also intuited that what's going to happen is this generation is going to stop buying records. So I knew I don't want to invest or do things there because that's going to be a shrinking industry.
Yeah.
So then I asked myself, well, okay, what do people in their 30s do that they didn't do in their teens and their 20s? And I only had to look at myself. What am I doing different? Okay, and so whatever that was, I knew what the trend was going to be. Because I got in front of the trend and I let the wave carry me. And it's the same thing where instead of inventing a parade, okay, I just found a parade, the baby boomers, and I got in front of it with a big flag and said, "Follow me."
Yeah, I'm the one. I know.
Okay, and so I just made sure that I would get a sense of where that demographic was going to be different than the one before it, and that enabled me to predict all the growth trends. Now, that formula is running out. Okay, because the boomers are now into their retirement years, and so healthcare is a big thing. Vitamin supplementation is a big thing. In other words, look at what people do as they get older to preserve their youth, to preserve their energy, to address the fact that their tastes and ideas and values have all changed since they were younger, right? So you get in front of that. All right, but the ability to get in front of the baby boom generation anymore is over.
Right.
Okay, they're at the point now where we know they need health care, and I hate to say this, but eventually they need mortuary services too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so all the things we know where that is, but it's coming to a conclusion at this point. Okay, so now you got to look at millennials. Okay, where are the millennials? What are they going to be doing as they start to age? And that's how you start to get in front of those trends coming along. Okay? So every time I would reinvent myself, I would just ask myself the simple question, okay, the boomers are getting older, their values are going to change, their needs are going to change, what are they going to want that the generation before them wanted when they were that age? And then I moved into that, let that wave carry me forward, so I was always in a growth environment.
Wow. I mean, that makes total sense. And now looking at it, we're at the forefront of millennials just by a year or two. I am.
Right.
And so I could really tell their position, but guess what? They grew up with different technology based than
Totally different.
So, you know, how do you stay in front of a group, of a generation, when it's so different?
Well, I let them educate me just like I educate them. I look at the value that I bring to them is a knowledge of psychology, people, business principles, ways of leveraging and financing money.
Yeah.
What I don't bring to them is technology and the use of technology. That's where I let them bring what they know to me. Okay, so I know where I'm good and I know where I'm not good, and I have no problem sitting down with a millennial and saying, can you teach me how to use this machine on my lap here?
And they probably look at you and, could you teach me strategic aggregation?
There you go.
You know?
So there's an exchange of values. But what I remain open to it. A lot of people, they get uncomfortable with the new technology, so they build a wall between themselves and the use of that technology, okay, because they don't want to get in that discomfort zone. You can't do that. Not if you want to continue to be successful.
Gotta keep growing,
Now, the other thing I told you that I would share with you is not only my macro method of how do I reinvent myself, but there's also a micro method, which is very effective today as well. When I look at my graduates, I have 300,000 graduates around the world from my finance programs, where I train people how to leverage and buy businesses. And when I look at the guys who are really successful, there's a common theme that I see in almost all of them. And here's the formula that they use. First of all, doing research today, you know, is very easy because you use Google, you use, oh man, I mean, it's not like when I was a kid. You got to go to the library, you got to sit down with the librarian, and what book do I pull off? Right, okay, and then where in the book is this?
Yeah, the database.
Right, yeah. Well, when, you know, but you didn't have an index where you just type in the word and it goes right to that, right? Okay, and that didn't exist. Okay, you had to actually do research.
Right.
Okay, well today it's really easy. And so what are the major trends in a field? So whatever their field is, that's fine. But in that field, what is it that is growing? Okay, and then who is it that the buyers are? Okay, now once you know what's trending, then you know what you want to have as your product or service to beat that. Okay, now the question is, where are those folks hanging out?
Right.
Okay,
where the people are.
Right, are they on social media? Are they hanging out in coffee shops? I mean, where are they?
Yes.
Okay, and then the next thing you have to do is that you market to them through today's channels or whatever channel they have. In other words, if I'm marketing to a baby boomer, I don't market the same way.
Right, absolutely.
Right, okay. So now you've done the research, you know what the hot products are. And now, the idea in business today is you do not want to have bricks and mortar and machinery and equipment and employees and inventory and warehouses and shipping department. You don't want all that. Because to build all that today is very, very expensive. What you want to do is take advantage of the fact that that stuff's all out there. You don't have to invent anything, okay? You just have to apply it to your new product or whatever it is that you want to do. I will guarantee you in almost any field that develops a product that there are contract manufacturers out there who would make it not only for you, but they make it for a lot of other companies, and like Motorola. Motorola doesn't make any of its own stuff. It's all made by manufacturers in Singapore and Hong Kong.
So we can tap into that.
Right. So the idea of these contract manufacturers are all out there. So there's somebody that can already make the product. Okay, there's a company like an Amazon, okay, where they'll warehouse it for you, they'll distribute it for you, they'll take the orders for you, they'll promote their client base that they have already to buy your product or service. You can work with them to do that. So you identify the right platform, you identify the right partners, you identify the right manufacturers, and you pull all those pieces together. Okay. And now you don't need massive amounts of capital to do that, okay, because all these businesses are already capitalized. There's fees you might have to pay. So there's the case where maybe you have to get your $10,000 or $50,000 together to make all those pieces fit. But you don't have
to go out and reinvent the wheel.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to go out and get $2 million
to get a big factory to develop.
Right. So you take your head out of that place, and then you've limited to some extent your profit margins, because these people all have to make money. But so what?
So what?
They're carrying the capital burden. They're carrying all the burden. Right. They're carrying the aggravation too, because you don't have any employees to deal with. Life is simple. Right. Okay.
So you're saying more simplified ways to get, and probably even more results
Right.
out of just the traditional
Well,
mindset of building a business.
I mean, just think of yourself out in your backyard trying to get a client versus having Amazon as your platform,
Right.
who already has all the clients on the planet.
I guess I think it's just a mindset.